If there's one place in the world where the combination of extremely high stakes and complete absurdity even exceeds our own, it's our closest ally across the pond, the United Kingdom, right? There, somehow the politics are even more bizarre than ours. This looked like the British version of an American TV show this week. Vice President Mike Pence was treated to what must be a very familiar experience, which is having to sit next to a wild-haired world leader prattling on about imports and meat products. No, really, seriously, look.
It is still the case that, the United States of America, the people of the United States of America, do not eat any British lamb or beef or haggis.
It's true. We don't eat a lot of haggis. The UK is having, in front of all our eyes, essentially a full-scale, society-wide political nervous breakdown. It's a really crazy thing to watch, particularly because it's a little like looking into our own future. Do you remember back in June of 2016, the people of the United Kingdom, they came together in a referendum and they voted to leave the European Union, to Brexit. And I'm going to be totally clear with you about this. I do this for a living. I've been reading about it. I've been studying, and I remain completely baffled about what the hell is happening over there. Completely. All I know is that it's like when a machine starts to break down and you start to smell the smoke before it explodes. And that's what the entire UK governmental system is like right now. Boris Johnson, of course, is the new prime minister, but he doesn't control anything. This week, a guy from his Conservative Party literally walked across the aisle to leave the Conservative Party and take away Johnson's majority from him. Right? So, and Johnson's hold on Parliament collapsed. He has now lost 3 votes in a row. And amidst this chaos, this guy who looks like someone drew him in a cartoon of a British toff decided to just lay down while everyone debated the fate of the nation. There's people yelling at him to sit up and show some respect. People are yelling at each other all over the place, even more than usual. And no one knows what's going to happen. Literally no one knows. It is possible. It's not the most likely scenario, but it is genuinely a possibility that Britain will just dump out of the EU and then they won't have toilet paper or pharmaceuticals or bananas. I mean, full out, self-imposed, self-created, nationwide catastrophe like the kinds that you would expect during war or in the aftermath of a natural disaster, except there's no war and there's no natural disaster. They just decided to do this to themselves. That is what we're watching. And that's why I can't keep my eyes off it, because I feel like I'm looking into our future. I mean, when Brexit happened back in summer 2016, we were all watching the Trump campaign at the time. And a lot of people were like, well, this is nuts and maybe entertaining, but the guy's not going to be president of the United States. And then Brexit happened, and it was like, oh, it's completely possible. It's totally possible for democracy to just come together and collectively decide to do something insane. That's a total possibility. And there were like a million headlines after the Brexit vote. What does Brexit mean for Trump? Is Trump America's surprise? And Trump himself, who knew nothing about Brexit a few days before Brexit, started telling everyone, they're calling me Mr. Brexit. What does that even mean? And then he won in November. Maybe you remember that. And ever since, I feel like every time you look across the pond, you are looking into our own terrifyingly depraved near future. And as crazy and dysfunctional as our politics are, somehow they do seem even crazier over there. I think there's a reason for that. They don't really have a way out over there. Think about this. So they're on a kind of collision course in the UK between direct democracy and representative democracy, right? The country voted in a majority vote, the voters went out to the voting booth in a referendum to do a thing that is a terrible idea. And if they do the thing that's a terrible idea, then they are keeping faith with that vote, with direct democracy. But the representatives of the country think it's a god-awful idea. And if they manage to stop it, well, then representative democracy wins. But then what the heck did you do about that vote? Why did you go ahead with this big referendum? What does that mean if you get a do-over, right? They're trapped. If someone could pull the emergency brake, they would. In fact, that's what the people who are abandoning the Conservative Party, those who are walking across lines, that's what they're trying to do. Parliament's been around a long time, but it has faced this set of circumstances never. And it has to craft an emergency brake out of nothing in the midst of the speeding train, and they're watching the train hurtle towards impact, which is some deadline where they're no longer in the EU. I mean, they don't have a constitution over there. It's a little weird. It's sort of, it works for them. They have traditions. And people are testing all those traditions. Like, some are so desperate now, you hear this, that the Queen is somehow going to save them. Like, Queen Deus Ex Machina, like Her Majesty will fix it. Like, we're a perfectly functioning democracy. Like, please. So over here, I think we have a similar situation in some ways with a big advantage, which is that we have emergency brakes on the train. We know democracies can come together and collectively select bad ideas. They are capable of doing that. In our defense, the bad idea, Donald Trump, was not democratically selected in the strictest sense, right? I was talking about the Electoral College last week. He did lose by 3 million votes, right? He was not a majority choice. He was also the subject of 2 different criminal conspiracies to sabotage his opponent that we know of. All right, it's always good to keep that in mind. Both the UK and the US developed democracies have landed in a situation where they have currently on a terrifying track, and they are trying to figure out how to stop the train or how to reverse course. And Britain's trying to figure out how to do it right now, but we can do that. We can wait till the next election and hope the train doesn't crash by then. One option. But the Constitution does provide 2 emergency brakes to pull before the next station. Like, in the Constitution, they thought of this. If you made a terrible mistake and you ended up with the most powerful person in your country and in the world, arguably, who was a criminal and was abusing his office and committing high crimes and misdemeanors, hypothetically, there's a mechanism to remove him. The founders understood it was important to build an emergency brake into the train. And then years later, we passed another amendment, we ratified one, to deal with a president who was not fit for office. Like, okay, let's just say, hypothesizing. What if Donald Trump lost his mind? No, what if he had a psychotic break in front of all of us? And what if for the next 12 months, all he talked about was Alabama and Dorian? No, I mean, like, think, seriously, play out the thought experiment. Like, okay, days go by, and every question, at every press conference, every official address, at every event he does, every tweet, it's just about that it was going to hit Alabama. At a certain point, I think we would have to remove the guy, right? Like, if he had a break. I don't know how long it would take, but we would just, I think, come together as a country at some point. 2 months, 6 months, 8 months into him just still talking about Alabama, they're like, we got to take the presidency away from him. I mean, you have to applaud that. I mean, that's grim. So aside from impeachment, there's the 25th Amendment, and, you know, if he's deemed unfit and we're lucky enough to basically have a consensus of his cabinet and the Republican Party, we could theoretically void the utter disaster that the UK is right now heading towards, because we do have an out. We do have an out. The question is, do we have the political will to take the out? Look over across the pond at those MPs who have abandoned Johnson, right? Including Boris Johnson's own brother, who is named Joe Johnson, which is perfect. And is like, I can't, I'm leaving, I'm out. I cannot be with my own flesh and blood. I'm going to betray him to save the country and work on the emergency brake. And if we had that attitude here, we could do it. I mean, we have an out. We are actually in a better position than they are. We don't have a deadline ahead of us where the country will have some disastrous, enormous change that will happen. We don't have to fashion the emergency brake out of tradition. We've got a system in front of us. It has been used before. It has been front of the nation. And the question is whether we have the people that have the courage right now to take the out. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.